I had the opportunity to fly the brand new Cessna Turbo 206 for 2 days, and here are my honest thoughts. First, one of the biggest things that I wanted to know was, does flying the 206 feel like you're flying a boat? And I was surprised to feel that the 206 really doesn't fly that heavy, at least to me. Now, I own a Cessna 182, so just jumping up to its big brother, the 206, really felt really familiar. It's a lot of reallys. But if you're coming from the Super Cub world or flying something really lightweight, then yes, flying anything bigger than like a 172 is probably gonna feel like a bit of a boat to you. But if you've been flying 172s, 182s, a Cirrus, anything like that, the 206 is gonna feel really natural. However, there were a few big things that stood out to me on its handling characteristics. For instance, on takeoff, you can tell that you've got a lot of power up front.
Good thing I wore my boots.
You've got 310 horsepower, pulling a lot of torque, really wanting to pull the airplane to the left, so you need a lot of right rudder to compensate for it.
A lot of right rudder.
The best way I can describe it is that in my 182, I really just have to bend my foot at the ankle for the right rudder. This for my foot, I guess. Whatever, I'm gonna roll with it. I'm committed to this analogy now. I just have to bend my foot like this. With a 206, on the other hand, it wasn't just this. I had to engage my entire right quad and just push it against the pedal because I needed a lot of right rudder. So that immediately stuck out to me.
Oh yeah. Woo! Lots of right rudder there.
What also stuck out to me is that we were getting 1,000 feet per minute in our climb right after takeoff. But then all the way up at 15,000 feet, we were way higher. We were still getting a 600 foot per minute climb performance, even with full fuel, 3 people, and a lot of bags. My non-turbocharged 182 will not do that. So that was awesome. So we went up to 17,000 feet for our cruise to see what that was like. The service ceiling on this airplane is 26,000 feet. It's way up there. Now to go above 18,000 feet, you need a full oxygen mask, and we didn't have those. We only had the nose cannula, so we stopped at 17. Up here at 17,000 feet, we were getting 161 knots of true airspeed, burning 19.2 gallons per hour. Now down low, we weren't going as fast, and we were also burning more fuel. So going high really allows you to put that turbocharger to work, burn less fuel, and go faster. Now, during the approach and landing, it was really windy that day. And since this was my first time landing a 206, I wasn't sure how challenging it might be. But I was surprised that it felt a ton like landing my 182. We were going about 70 knots on final, which is a little faster than I'm used to at 60 in my 182, but it's pretty comparable, and the airplane is really responsive. You also got much bigger flaps on the 206 than the 182. It's about 3 feet longer on each side. So you've got a ton of lift, and it's also really easy to slow the airplane down. The point is, it was really natural to fly. I have had the opportunity to fly Cessna's 172, 180, 182, 206, both Caravans, and a Citation. And I can honestly say I've left every one of those airplanes saying, yeah, flies like a big 172. It's one of the things I love about Cessna. They're not paying me to say this. I genuinely think that they have a really consistent flying experience across their whole line. So if you can fly a 172, you can fly and land a 182, which means you can also fly and land a 206. They're all just a little bit bigger, but they're all really natural to fly. Now, useful load on the 206 is one of the reasons you'd buy it in the first place. And useful load just means how much can you carry between fuel, people, and stuff. The 206 has 1,441 pounds of useful load by the book. And with full fuel, which we'll discuss here in a minute, that leaves you with a little over 900 pounds to work with, which is a lot. With 6 seats in the airplane, you could technically carry 6 people depending on their size, although the bench seat in the back might be a bit of a tight squeeze for 2 full-size adults. We had it configured with the bench seat removed, which is personally how I would do it if I owned one of these airplanes, because it leaves you with a massive cargo area, and then you know you can always carry 4 people, all their stuff, and full fuel all day. It has the useful load to pull it off. The double cargo doors are a game changer. These things are awesome. And the smaller Cessnas just have that little cargo door on the back left side of the airplane, which I never had any sort of problem with until flying the 206. This totally ruined me. Just goes to show you the comparison is the thief of all joy. The only downsides of these huge double doors is that 1, they're on the co-pilot side, and 2, you lose the co-pilot door. So co-pilot has to scoot across the pilot seat to get in, but if it were between having a co-pilot door or the double doors, I'd pick the double doors. The other nice thing about having such a large useful load is that adding air conditioning, which weighs about 60 pounds, doesn't put any sort of meaningful dent in how much you're still allowed to carry. Whereas putting in a 172 or something, 60 pounds means a lot because you don't have very much to start with. In the 206, put in AC, you're not really gonna notice it. Talking about useful load kind of brings us now to range and fuel burn of this airplane. By the book, the Turbo 206 has 703 nautical miles of range. On paper, the 182 and some other airplanes have a longer range than that, but for most people, I don't think you'll ever experience the difference. The 206 holds 87 gallons of fuel, and it burns roughly 20 gallons per hour, which means you've got about 3.5 hours of realistic cruise, which still gets you a pretty long ways, and you're probably gonna wanna stop by then to take a leak anyways. And we were doing about 160 knots true, so that gets you almost 600 miles before you need to stop. And for me, that's usually about my practical limit anyways, so in my opinion, unless you have a mission that's consistently going really far or needing a big surplus of fuel, the 206's range is just fine. I think the only downside here is that since the turbocharged engine does burn a decent amount of fuel, you don't have much room to take off fuel to carry more people or bags, since you're gonna need a lot of that fuel in the first place. My 182 has 75 gallons of usable fuel, and I almost never need that much, so it's pretty easy for me to reduce the amount of fuel and boost my carrying capacity. It'd be a little harder to do this in a 206 because you're probably gonna need a lot of that fuel. Now, I think the biggest difference in these new airplanes is the avionics suite. The 206 has the G1000 NXI, which is awesome. It has more features than we could possibly cover in this video, but in general, it's just really intuitive and it's really powerful. For example, one awesome feature is ESP, electronic stability and protection. Now, I got to demo this in the 182 in filament. It has the same exact avionics package as the 206, and so here is a short clip demonstrating how it works.
All right, let's demonstrate the ESP, the electronic stability protection. What that's going to do is, basically it's a safety pilot. It's a safety pilot in your right seat all the time. So as you can see here on the PFD, you've got these two double dash lines here. That is basically her saying that if you go beyond 45-degree bank, we're going to nudge you back. That's uncommon. And you'll feel her nudge you back. If you continue to hold it there, she will engage autopilot and bring the wings level with a 0 rate of climb after 10 seconds.
That could save your life.
So yeah. So go ahead and give a nice, we're under 110 knots, which is our maneuvering speed.
Okay.
So give it a nice little left turn, 45-degree bank, and you'll feel her nudge you.
Okay. Clear left.
Clear left.
All right. So all the way to 45?
All the way to 45 there.
Okay. There's 45.
You feel her?
Oh, yep. Coming back in.
Now just keep holding it there.
Okay.
Keep holding it.
Just fight it.
Keep holding it. You're
Okay.
good on altitude.
Okay.
Good on airspeed.
Engaging
Now drop
autopilot.
let go. Now you'll see that she's went into level mode. Now it just happened to be that you kept the altitude so good at 35 that she's at 35 now. But whatever altitude she would have been currently at, that's what she would have captured.
No kidding.
So,
wow.
It's a super cool feature. It can save your life. I mean, you're probably going to be an autopilot in the clouds anyway, but in the event that you weren't and you got disoriented, it would be just a fantastic way to make sure that, you don't get in a compromising situation.
One of my favorite features is that through FlightStream, your iPad now talks to the G1000. So you can load your entire flight plan there in your iPad, and once you start up the airplane, you just send it to the panel, and you don't have to go type in and turn all the knobs and everything. It just recognizes the flight plan and inputs it. And then when you update the flight plan mid-air, it'll send it back to your iPad.
My iPad says new flight plan
Loaded from panel.
loaded from panel, so it recognized that.
And it recognizes that.
They're always talking to one another, and it's a small thing, but it's really cool, it's really smart, and most importantly, it cuts down on your workload. Another cool feature of the avionics package is that the standby backup instruments are now combined into the electronic standby in the GI 275. This replaces the need for a vacuum pump, and it also just looks really cool. It looks really clean on the panel. And when you update the altimeter setting in the G1000, it also updates the standby, which is a small thing, but once you do it a bunch of times every single flight, it comes in handy to not have to update it 2 times every time. Now let's talk about the performance of this airplane. It's basically like a Suburban, but it doesn't fly like a Suburban. At about 160 knots in cruise, it's not a speedster, but considering the short field capability, the useful load, and its general design that allows you to load it up with just about anything, it is a beast. I honestly think it is one of the most capable piston aircraft ever made. It'll land short, go high, carry just about anything, go reasonably fast. It's really intuitive to fly, and since it's a Cessna, just about any shop can work on them. While I think the 182 is one of the best do a little bit of everything airplanes, that's why I own one, I think the 206 is a do a little bit of everything, a little bit better airplanes. It's a hot rod.
Beefy.
And it seems like the perfect airplane if you consistently need it for that kind of mission. It's kind of like buying a Suburban. If you don't consistently need it, it's kind of overkill, unless you don't mind paying for a Suburban and only doing Suburban things a small percentage of the time. How many times can I say Suburban? Now for me, the 182 will do almost everything I just described, except it goes about 20 to 30 knots slower and it won't carry quite as much, but it still does a little bit of everything. But as my family grows and my mission changes, I could totally see the 206 being the airplane for me one day. Now in the video on the screen is the demo flight I got to take in the 206, and I really think it gives you a first-hand picture of what flying this airplane is really like. So I'll see you there. And